Hello, everyone. I'm here with Scott McDonald. He is better known as Dr. Demographics. And Scott, welcome to the program, and I'll go ahead and have you introduce yourself.
Terrific. Well, thanks so much for the opportunity to talk to these wonderful people. And I just kind of give you a real quick introduction to myself. I am a communications person mass communications specializing in professional practices with a special emphasis in dentistry. So having worked with dentists now for over 30 years, I try to sit in that front desk and reception area often enough to figure out what the heck everybody's caring about. Maybe see if we can talk about some things that will help make their lives a little bit easier.
That sounds great, Scott. Thank you so much for being on the program today. How did you decide what services you were going to provide?
Well, ultimately, I was a mass communications person, public relations agent, and I was in New York working for a public relations and advertising agency. And so, our job is to try to figure out how do you motivate people to action. After having worked with a large number of people, including agencies, public relations, and advertising, eventually I was hired by the California Dental Association, where they were trying to figure out how do we make people do things that are in their own best interest but are reluctant to do. So that became kind of my field, if you will, over the years. I received additional education, got my graduate degree, and now we try to figure out literally how to help practice personnel, the employees in the office, how they can actually have an effect in people's lives to get them the stuff that they need and to help them not only do it but also want to do it. And that's been the great challenge of my career.
Great. Thank you, Scott. What I really enjoyed about hearing you for the very first time back in 2003, and I was sitting as a senior in dental school, and you came in to our lecture hall and gave us probably one of the most entertaining speeches I've ever heard. I remember it very vividly, even to this day. There's very few speakers that I remember 13 years later, so thanks for doing that. So is that something you still do right now? Do you still go to dental schools and talk to dental students?
As a matter of fact, I do, and I'm arranging some meetings in New York with schools there and more in California. And in fact, tomorrow I'm heading off to UCLA to talk to their senior class.
Okay. Can you give us a little bit about what you're going to be talking to them about?
Well, one of the things we're talking about is what they call market segmentation theory. And it's something that I'm sure that everybody knows. Everybody's a little different. In this age, by the way, we don't even have people recognize that gender is real, and certainly race and ethnicity, but age. People do things based upon what is in their own best interest. They watch what they want on TV and read what they want, and basically we're living lots and lots of different lifestyles. So tomorrow I'm going to be talking about how to look at a population and say, all right, who am I dealing with? What do these people particularly have in common? And also within their practices, who are the people that we actually have that might be different than our neighboring practices have? You'll notice that every practice actually takes on a different segment of the market. So you could have two offices right next to each other, and one will do marvelously well and others are going to struggle. It's not because they're bad clinicians. In fact, the truth is, unless it hurts, squirts blood, or falls out, no one's going to know how really good a clinician they are. But what they know is how they feel like they're being treated. But everybody wants to be treated differently. So, if we talk about age, for example, and I'm talking about the differences between a population, if you have older patients or a predominantly older practice, you're really going to be looking at different things that people need clinically as well as sociologically, what they need and the way you talk to them. And I got to tell you, I've been doing this for a long time. So, here's my thing. I'm getting old enough that if I drop change on the floor, I'll actually count it to see if it's worth the trip. And, the truth is sometimes it isn't. So knowing that people are different and have different priorities and different things they want, we want to not divide them because we don't like some people, but rather to say, how do we serve them better based upon what they express and what they need and what they want.
Okay. You brought up a very good example here about two dental offices neighboring dental offices right next to each other. One of them is doing very well, and the other one is not doing well at all. Can you give us a little bit more of a specific example of, in your career, has that happened to you personally, and how, did you try to fix it, or were you helping one office versus the other office?
Well, as it happened, this was when I was working for Organized Dentistry, and I was also living and working in Sacramento. You know how desperate and sad that. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. You're in Sacramento, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, God.
Hey, and you're welcome. It was on Eastern Avenue, as a matter of fact. There were two doctors that were really close together. You know where Eastern Avenue is, I'm assuming.
Yes, I do. Very familiar.
Okay,
with
now
it.
they were in the same complex, literally right next door to each other. And I was doing this because I was working with both of them who were officers in the Dental Society, the Sacramento District Dental Society, it's called. Now, I was dealing with each of them because of work that we were doing on membership recruitment and retention. But it happened that I was there and learning about how practices operated. So, you know, just being a friendly CDA guy, we started talking about how they were doing. Now, most of the time when you ask a dentist, how are you doing, they always say, oh, I'm doing just great. And by the way, you probably know this already. You know the difference between God and a general dentist?
No, tell me.
God knows he's not a general dentist. You got that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Because they don't want to admit mistakes. They don't want to admit errors. So normally the natural answer is, oh, I'm doing just great. I'm just killing it. Well, this one guy says, I'm not doing well. So, you know, it's part of my mandate.
Two separate people.
I'm sorry?
These are two separate people. So one person
said,
two
separate
people,
great, and their offices are next door.
Next door.
Here's the other thing. Demographically, the two doctors were very similar.
Okay.
Same ethnicity, race, age, about the same. You know, they're probably paying close to the same rent, too, and about the same size office. So you kind of go, oh, here's an apples and apples comparison. But the one guy says, our new patient count is way down, and our production is lagging. Now, when you hear something like that, someone's being honest, and I talked to the other guy who was next door, who's also on the membership committee, said, so how are you doing? Oh, we're surprised how well we're growing. We're going to have to move out of this office because we have so many people coming through. Why was one doing well and one was doing badly? Because as I mentioned, unless there's an obvious reason why clinically they're different, you'll have to assume the only difference that people perceive is how they're being treated. Well, one of the problems was the front desk lady in each of the offices. Well, I shouldn't say a problem. It was just different. Because one of the things this lady who was at the front desk, one of them was just as sweet as she could be. You walk in and she'd almost want to just hug you. You know, it's one of the kind of huggers.
Right,
you know the front desk kind of person I'm talking about. And
yes.
And she was a little overweight and just as sweet as she could possibly be, and you want to hug from her.
Yeah.
Then when you talk to the other front desk lady, and this was a big difference between the two, she was a miserable human being. She probably kicked puppies. I mean, just not happy in her life.
Wow.
Now, the assumption the way she was treating people was people are a pain in the neck, I don't want to see them. The lady who's the hugger had the attitude that I just love people. I like seeing them. I like meeting them. I don't have to have just friends come in. I just like the act of meeting people. Now, granted, there were lots of other differences in the practices. One of them, by the way, the guy who wasn't doing so well, had an attitude of, I basically am going to fail. I think he was convinced he was not going to do well. Have you ever met a guy who sells life insurance? Nobody's buying my insurance. I'm dying here. This is really terrible. I may have to start selling multi-level marketing stuff, and it's just awful. Hey, you want to buy insurance? You know, that kind of guy. And you go, no, that's okay, fine, thank you anyway, I'm good. But you see, his attitude about what he was dealing with people was, it's probably not going to work out, and everything fails. It's like he reads Ecclesiastes out of the Old Testament, which is everything's vanity, nothing lasts, nothing's good. He was just that kind of guy. The other guy, much more upbeat. Now, I have to tell you something's funny about this younger guy who was doing well. They had actually had a baby about 3 months before. He's tired. They're not sleeping through the night. You know how little babies are.
Oh, yeah.
But every day he got up and he was just excited to play with his little one. It was our first child.
Okay.
The other guy, on the other hand, was just, I think he had a couple of kids and he didn't like them, The attitude about practice and about people and about life in general permeated everything in the office.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to tell you what we did to help, and I'm proud to say we actually helped that office that wasn't doing well.
Okay, good.
For one thing, I installed mirrors next to every phone in the office.
Okay.
And we initiated a policy that every time they answered the phone, they had to look in the mirror. Every time. Now, it's your looking in the mirror that will often make your attitude. Henry James, who used to be the president of Harvard University a long, long time ago, he once said something that was just brilliant. He says, it's easier to act yourself into feeling than it is to feel yourself into action.
Wow. Can you say that one more time?
It's easier to act yourself into feeling than to feel yourself into action.
Okay.
Literally, he said, you have to often lie to yourself to make yourself do what is necessary to have good human relations.
Okay.
You see, you got to fix you. So
right.
What he would do himself is he said, I have to initiate every conversation with a smile. That's what Henry James said.
Okay.
It wasn't that I have to feel like smiling, it's that I had to do that. So we extrapolated on this and put a mirror next to it. So every time you were on the phone, you had to look in the mirror. Every time you looked at a person who walked in the door, you had to look in the mirror first, fix your face, and then talk to them. Now, I had the doctor do this too. I think actually the staff was getting their cues from the doctor's attitude as much as anything else. Because after all, and every staff person in the world knows this, you know this. The doctor walks into the office, and if he's grumpy, everybody in the staff will look around and go, oh, it's going to be one of those days.
Right.
It's going to be one of those days. Who didn't buy him the coffee this morning? Somebody get some espresso or something. Let's buy him a bagel. I don't know. But the point is, if the doctor ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Right.
Now, that, of course, is not about doctors, but it's about any human relation that's intimate. And doctors are really in a very controlling, as far as the mood of the office, thing. Now, again, going back, I think these doctors were probably just about as good a clinician as the other. But the manifestation within their practice was one liked being in practice, the other didn't.
Right.
The staff people liked being there or didn't.
Okay.
Now, let me just share some. And again, we're primarily talking to front desk people, aren't we here, or dental staff?
Well, yeah, we're focusing on the dental team as a whole. So,
right.
With Front Desk U, my company, what we do is we do work with front office staff, but ultimately the goal is to get the entire team on the same page. So what you're talking about is very key here, because you're not just addressing the dentist. I mean, the dentist could be the best clinician in the world, but nobody knows about him because of the barriers that the patients might be facing coming to see him.
Absolutely. Now, real quick thing. There was an airline study that was done by SAS Airlines out of Scandinavia. They were trying to figure out how people thought about their airline. So they did a study to try to measure every opinion about the airline on time, schedule, how comfortable the seats were, all these other things. And you know that what they found made a difference on more than almost anything was the tray that's in front of your seat.
Interesting. Okay.
They said if it's clean, if it's large enough, I mean, that's what people are looking at almost the whole trip. And so they perceived the quality of the airplane maintenance, including the engines, by the tray.
The tray, okay.
So they said they had to change that.
So if a passenger is sitting in the plane and the tray wasn't completely clean, then his perception of how the entire airplane company was running was not perceived as
exactly there. Absolutely. And so they found, by the way, if a tray was sticky, that was the kiss of death for that airline.
Wow. Interesting.
Sticky? How big a deal is that really? It's a big deal.
It's a big
because
deal.
People can't judge how clean your engines are, how well they're running. They can't tell how well trained your pilots are. But they can see the tray, and they're judging the airline by the tray. The same thing happens in a dental office. So,
have you ever flown on an airline where you felt like the tray was not clean? And
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have.
All right.
Well,
and,
actually,
and
twice.
What did you feel?
Both the airlines are out of business now, by the way.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Well,
or they could have possibly just changed their name.
Well, they were bought out by somebody else.
Okay.
But apparently they had somebody else who was taking care of the airplane maintenance. The same thing holds true with people's perception of dental care.
Okay.
Now, little story going back in time. I used to be the marketing manager for the California Dental Association, as I mentioned. So we actually were trying to figure out, this is back when advertising just became legal, which was, by the way, 1977, and I started in about 82. And here's what we found. We would go and ask people questions, and the doctors were cooperating with us, of people who had received treatment 2 weeks previous.
Okay.
Now, we were asking them on telephone surveys, could you tell us about your experience? Because we're trying to find what their initial thoughts were about dental care. And when we asked people, which was just a foundational question, could you tell us what quadrant of your mouth was treated? More than half of them cheated with their tongue. They couldn't tell. They couldn't remember what quadrant was treated.
Wow.
Now, I thought that's kind of interesting. Then I asked them, what did you actually have done? And I was also surprised that only about a third can actually say accurately what was done. Because we had the notes from the doctors, but
Sure.
these people couldn't remember. So you're kind of going, well, you paid all this money, and you don't even really know what happened, and could you describe your experience? And here's one of my favorite things, because this happened all the time. They'd say, well, I laid back, and he put kind of a balloon in my mouth, and then my mouth went to sleep, and then there was smoke coming out. That was it. That's what people were telling us they're paying this money for. They can't tell you what is being done. They don't know where it's being done, and certainly they had no objective way of saying how good or how bad the treatment was.
Interesting.
Everything is judged peripherally. So we found, for example, that if you had stains on your carpet in your reception area, almost beyond question or doubt, you're going to find people will judge your cleanliness lower. Now, it could be a leak in the ceiling, in the roof. It's not your fault, right? I mean, it happens to everybody.
Right.
But a stain on the carpet is perceived as someone urinating in your front office, in the reception area.
Yeah, I was surprised as to how many people. The first office I ever bought, the most amount of comments that I received from patients were the ceiling.
Yeah.
And
if the vents aren't clean, oh my gosh,
they would
what
complain
does that say
about they would complain about the lighting fixture. There's something weird about the lighting fixture. Was the light panel wouldn't cover the entire lighting fixture, so they would talk about how they would fix it. And I had a lot of patients who were in the construction industry, so they would always comment on, hey, I can fix that for you, while I was fixing their teeth. And now this is something I rarely walk into a room and look up, but my patients are always looking up.
Right. Right. So you understand that became a very important thing.
Right.
Only from their perspective, not from yours. And what they're seeing is rarely what you see. Now, I've also been surprised how often dentists themselves never walk outside and look at their front door because they use a back door. Their car, their Mercedes or whatever, their Porsche is in the back, covered someplace else. They don't see what the patient sees when they walk in the door.
Right.
And because the perspective is different, sometimes it gives them a false sense of how good or bad things really are.
Okay.
So,
well, can we go back to the story? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Sure, about the two guys that are one doing well, one not.
What was the conclusion there?
Well, first of all, we had to change. The biggest thing was their attitude. Okay. Whatever it took to change the attitude of the staff and the doctor, that is what made the biggest difference. But then we started doing, along this line of what I'm talking about, walking in your own front door, sitting in your own reception area for a while. I mean, after all, the little fairies in the trees in the Highlights magazine, if they've already been circled, it's a very boring experience for most people. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so we had to put them through the idea of what their own experience was going to be. It changed the way that they were thinking about the experience with patients. So that was the second thing, ultimately, we did. The third thing, by the way, that we also had to do is we had to restore fun to the practice. Because the one that was doing well, spontaneous laughter was really common. They would just do fun things and, not obnoxious laughter, but they were happy, and you could tell. Okay. We had to restore a sense of fun to the process, which primarily we did by doing every hour a bit of a break while you're standing up, while you're moving around, because as you know, being a dentist, this is a very intense business, and your entire life revolves around something that's about 3 or 4 microns across.
That's correct.
And for anybody who doesn't know, a micron is a very, 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 very tiny thing.
Right.
But that's the world of the dental staff, particularly clinical. Hmm. And then when it's the front desk staff, the thing that they so often see are the people who are unhappy. They don't see the people who are overjoyed, thrilled, and happy, or at least they don't think about them. But everybody goes through negative experiences, and if you begin to believe that the source of your unhappiness will be patients, you'll resent them.
Right.
And therefore, we have to change your perspective and your treatment of the people who pay you. So I know that it is a very easy thing to say. It's hard to implement this. So one of the things that I also learned is just having a list of instructions or having a very stern warning in a staff meeting does very little. It has to be an overall commitment of the staff to do things, for everybody to feel like, yeah, it's all my job. It's my job to make everybody happy, my job to make patients thrilled about being there, not just somebody else. So a quick little story, if you don't mind me continuing on here. There's a thing that I used to do where I'd meet with the staff and doctor and staff, and in fact it was ironic because the doctor's almost always late to the staff meeting.
Okay.
I don't know why, but it just happens that way. Part of the thing is because the doctor has this assumption, I'm the busy guy in the practice or the busy woman in the practice. I'm the one who is really in charge here, and therefore I can kind of waltz in any time that I really need to because everybody else I'm paying, they should, put up with it. But that tends to separate. Or sometimes they might have yeah?
Oh, sometimes they might have a belief that the meeting won't start until I get there.
Oh, yes, that's pretty much true. Things don't start until I'm there. And, the rest of the staff is looking around going, what, do we chop liver here? Come on.
Yeah.
We all have things to do. We need a little respect, and therefore, doctor, show up, right?
Sure.
But by the way, it's unfair to really do that too much to a doctor alone because we know that every office is really a family. There's a surrogate family with a mom and a dad and a younger sibling, and that younger sibling every time will be spoiled. Did you know every office has a whiny youngest child surrogate in the staff?
Yeah.
And I bet if you guys think about it, you'll even say, oh, I know who that is. That's Janet right over there. And in fact, when you're trying to figure out where to go to lunch when you're at a convention or during a meeting of some kind, you're all trying to figure out, I don't want to go for pizza again. Shut up, Janet. Really? But nobody does. They just roll their eyes and, okay, well, Janet's unhappy, so we make her happy.
Right.
That is hard to deal with. But everybody is a surrogate family, and everybody has roles. Happy families are the ones, what did Tolstoy say? All families that are happy in the same way, and every family that is unhappy in their own unique way. I think that was how the quote goes. And so that's almost how you can identify a staff, an office meeting that's not going well, because they'll tend to have those little things in common. So ironically, when you have those meetings and you're sitting around the coffee table and thinking somebody really ought to get rid of this Highlights magazine and get something new in here, and really, who brings guns and ammo in the reception area except the doctor? Okay, really? Come on.
Yeah.
Point is, you're kind of sitting around and you have these meetings and you're all kind of going into your roles of what family member, what birth order you fall in. And a funny thing happens, if you don't mind me just throwing this out real quick. Everybody falls into this thing of what is my job, what is my responsibility? And they're always task-oriented. So here's the thing. Whenever I go in, I'll notice the bathroom, because the bathroom tells you everything about how an office is run. It's not the operatories, not the front desk, not the insurance area, which is usually kind of cluttered and sort of nasty, but no, it's the bathroom. So if you go into the bathroom and there's no roll of toilet paper on the roll, you know you got a problem in that office.
Right.
In one particular office, happened back in Phoenix, walked into the office and I said, "Hey, there's no toilet paper in the toilet paper roll. I'm just trying to be, conversational, help them out." And you can't believe all of a sudden the turmoil that I threw the office into, because the front desk lady goes, "Hey, I'm the one who has to greet people. I've got so much to do. I have to guide people back. Look, it's not my job." The dental assistants, "Hey, it's not my job. Our job is to try to do the tray setups and to try to figure out what the doctor means by which means get out of my light or move the tongue. We're just supposed to read his mind. We don't know that." And then other people will kind of go, "Well, look, I'm the hygienist. I'm the one who really runs this stupid office. I'm the one who everybody depends on to make sure that cash is coming through here. So listen, it's not my job." And then the doctor, of course, can say, "I spend weekends doing the books. I suffered through dental school. I hate my life. It's not my job." So to let you know, once a month I fly to Phoenix because changing the toilet paper roll is my job, right? Anyway, you get the idea.
Yeah.
If we have that attitude, though, that we are genuinely a family and we really love each other, and we're doing everything we can to keep our practice going by being good to patients and make them happy, everybody's day it flies by and you make more money.
Right.
That's my message for what we're talking about today. I know we're almost out of time, but
we got a couple more minutes left.
It's finding that joy in what you do every day and really looking for the good things in the other people in the office. You got to do it. But, of course, I'm going to say something very unfortunate real quick before I have to go. Listen, every once in a while you look around the staff and you have to realize we need to fire that person. One of the worst things that practices do is you let bad behavior, bad actors continue on for too long.
Right.
Teeth don't get better. You have to treat them.
Right.
Otherwise, they're just going to hurt like heck and get more expensive. Same thing is true with bad actors in a dental practice staff. Just thought I'd throw that out.
Well, thank you. So, first of all, Scott, thank you so much for being on the program today. Do you have a book or a way that somebody can get more information on you online?
Yes. Here's go to drdemographics.com. I've got my podcast listed on there. Lots of topics about how to treat patients, how to promote practices, and where to put practices. Modern trends in society, and it's free. And that's drdemographics.com. You can also find us on iTunes, and these little lectures are just a joy for me. I love it. I speak fairly often. If you guys ever have any dental society meetings, you're going, "Oh, let's have somebody who will be really fun and on my side," call me at drdemographics.com, and I'll come out and make your life fun. All right?
All right. Thank you so much, Scott. Hey, have a great day. Thanks for being on the program today.
You're welcome. Take care then.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.